So the object here is clear. It's to minimize exposure and injury risks when using high-speed boats. And I've been working with users in many countries for very many years, and it's extremely rewarding to work with those who have the problem that you're trying to solve, get the feedback, and you really need both the knowledge you get and the enthusiasm. So I'm going to talk about vetenskap och beprövad erfarenhet. What is that? I am a specialist both in emergency medicine, anesthesiology, intensive care, and in occupational medicine. Working as a doctor in Sweden, you have to, in your profession, follow science and proven experience. This is not a recommendation. This is a legal obligation. Following science means following evidence-based science, not fake science. If you want to prove something and you want to use scientific methods, you can prove that smoking is not dangerous. There were a lot of scientists working doing this many years ago. You can show that cars do not emit as much as more than they are allowed to, etc. I mean, a big automotive manufacturer was caught with their pants down and their rear ends bare not long ago. They used scientific methods to prove something that they knew wasn't correct. And why is this happening? Well, there are two reasons: money and profit. And this means that those who have the problems have to understand, have to know enough to be able to scrutinize what's being claimed. What is proven experience? If a drug company comes up with a drug, they do experiments to prove on rats, etc., first in the lab on tissues, that something works, and then they say this works. But not until you have the proven experience on a large number of people over a long time, you can say that it's proven experience. So we are not allowed to experiment with people in medical practice, not in pharmacology, unless it's controlled very well. So what is then the science and what is the proven experience in risk reduction for high-speed boats? What is the established evidence-based science? Repeated impact exposure causes physical fatigue. This is non-disputable. It's been proven. One of the studies, the Meyer and Dobbins that was referred to in the last presentation, has shown this very, very clearly in a very elegant study. Anyone who wants to reference this here, talk to me and I'll get you the original work. Standing can amplify human impact levels up to 3 times. We can measure 3 times higher impacts on the human body than on the deck when slamming. I won't go into right now why that is. The first time we saw this, we thought it was artifacts. We just couldn't understand it. Eventually, we know more studies were done showing the same thing, and now we know why this is the case. So standing is not recommended. The only time you should stand is when you're docking or mooring or boarding. Bottoming out can amplify human impact levels to up to more than 3 times. So a 4G impact on the boat can be 12G and more up your spine. The spine is stronger when it's S-shaped than when it's C-shaped. Many of you have seen grandma before. This is the shape of the spine when we stand. This is the best shape to withstand an actual impact. But when we sit, it never looks like this unless we sit on a horse posing for a statue. Or, I mean, this is a natural way of keeping your spine when you're standing, and actually when you're sitting in a straddle seat. When we sit in a normal chair, if you all look at the gentleman with the pink shorts here, you know that all of you sit like this sooner or later. Sometimes you sit like this, slouching, even though you have been taught that you're not allowed to do it. It's dangerous and it's considered rude. You don't sit like this in a job interview unless you're the one who puts the questions. So why have we been told that we're not allowed to sit like this? Because it hurts if you have a back problem. If you have a disc herniation, you don't sit like this because it hurts. Okay? Why do you sit like this now? Because it feels good. It's comfortable. Is it dangerous? No, it's not dangerous. Is it rude? No. You should sit as comfortably as possible, of course. So, why do we sit like this? I mean, I didn't plan to go into this, but I just have to. Why do we all sit in a manner that our school teachers told us was not allowed? Even on a kitchen chair, you sometimes go into this position. You slide so far forward that you can put your shoulder blades on the edge of your kitchen chair. Then you unload the weight of not only the shoulder, but the entire arm, which hangs in your shoulder blade, which hangs in these muscles, the same muscles that keep the head from falling down when we sit. These muscles are strained all the time. Okay? So, if you get a back problem in the office, it's your own fault because you didn't sit like this. As a doctor, I know it. As a physiotherapist, I know it. I know it was your own fault. Because no one can sit like this for more than 90 seconds. Which is enough time to take all the pictures for ergonomic brochures and textbooks. Okay? This is the way all conference chairs are designed, kitchen chairs, most truck driver seats, etc., and very many boat seats. But you don't sit like this. You sit like this. And what happens then? This. So the spine is not S-shaped, it's C-shaped. And when we get hit from below, this happens. So the vertebrae crack here, they get compressed. The discs crack here, and you can get protrusions, disc herniations. Okay? So we don't want to be in that position. Here it's fine, because you won't get hit from below. And if you don't have a back problem, be my guest. Sit in the most comfortable position you can, because that's the one that's best for you. Remember, if it feels good, it most probably is. Okay, but when we go to C, it's a little bit different. Now I want you all to stand up. You over there in Eriksbergshallen also, just please stand up. Take a deep breath, relax. Okay, and now we sit down, but not all the way. I want you to stop 2 inches, 5 centimeters above your seat, here, okay? Please. Not all the way. No elbows on your knees, no cheating. Okay? And now you stay in this position for 5 minutes. Okay? Which muscles are taking the greatest load right now? The quads, okay? So, in this position, the head is in front of the body, right? If we get hit here, okay, and were you a physiotherapist? No? Okay, sit down. Thank you. Why? Why does this happen? Now I want you all to put your knees at 90 degrees, feel this tendon here and this tendon here. Okay? Sit straight, pull the sway of your back in. You feel they're tensed? Okay, within 90 seconds we will be here, and they're nice and loose. Okay, these tendons attach down here. Here is the hip joint. So when they are tensed, we have to exert pressure here, attraction to keep the sway in. That's not natural. We can't do that for very long, and we shouldn't. But when the leg comes down to here, we relax the hamstring muscles. The hamstrings go from here to here, parallel. So relaxing these muscles is first getting the knee down and then getting the foot back. Then you are in the same position as when you're standing with the shape of your spine. Why have race boat drivers been standing for decades? Why were the Navy SEALs told to stand on the USMI 11-meter rib 20 years ago? Because sitting down hurt so much. And the only way to avoid the pain you get from sitting down is to stand up. And standing up is fine, as long as you can handle the impacts. And then you're in this position. Take the impacts. I've been there. I've been out there. 20 minutes. Since then, my knees never healed. Not that boat, another boat. We were going into the seas, and I didn't want to be the first to ask the driver to slow down, which I, of course, should have. Next day, I could hardly walk. What happens here is, of course, it wears out your knee cartilages. The SBS guys in the UK, they say, we all look like little old ladies when we're trying to play rugby because all our knee cartilages are gone. But what happens is, when you stand like this, the boat goes airborne, the boat deck disappears under you because the boat is weightless in free fall and you are weightless. So the tension here stretches your legs. Then the boat comes down, hits the water, gradually displaces more and more water, comes to a complete stop, and wham, your heels impact with the deck. And that's fine if you're here. But if you're here with almost straight or completely straight legs, this shock wave goes all the way up to the head, and you get this head jolt. So you can break your neck from standing. That has happened. Many neck injuries come from standing. The Danish Special Forces have seen quite a few neck injuries. Normally, with the most boat impact-induced injuries we see in the lumbar region. So, standing is not good. Standing hurts once you take a hit on almost straight or straight legs. So that was not in the program, but I couldn't. Now you know why the S-shaped spine should be maintained. And if we can create a seat where you, when you rest, maintain this, you will be able to take up more impacts because your seat, your spine is less vulnerable in this shape than in the shape you saw in the Maidamo model. That model had not been taught how to sit properly, but it was true because this is how people sit. But if you can sit like this, you can take more beating. So the spine is stronger when S-shaped than C-shaped. Already dead. Structural failure in the body normally causes pain. Undisputed. Pain is a sign. It's not necessarily a sign of structural failure, but there is no structural failure without pain. And when you experience pain, that's a warning sign. The good Lord didn't give us the pain to give us a hard time. Everything we get from our senses basically is relevant information. If it feels good, it normally is. Lateral impacts are more dangerous than pure vertical. Why is that? I mean, 400,000 years ago, when we fell down from the tree because the coconut sort of was too far away, we normally landed like this. We weren't designed to land like this. So we have more strength to take up axial and longitudinal impacts than lateral. So now when we go out on a boat and it lands perfectly straight, it's much better than when it lands on the sides. Not only does this side landing get much harder because you come down on a hull side, but also you get these shear forces. And it's not very strong to keep the structures together with the shear forces. Okay? So we need to not only allow the spine to move, to sway like this, we should absolutely not be locked in so that the spine moves like this, because then only the head will flail sideways. We should allow this. But we also need to have seats that take up lateral impacts for two reasons. One is to protect the spine from the injuries, from the structural failure. The other is that when people sit in a seat that just moves in one direction and you get the impact from here, the risk of getting ejected and thrown overboard is much, much higher than if the seat can move with you, because you will stay in the seat and it will keep compressing all the time. So it's much safer if you can have seats that will work with the body, where the suspension is designed to synergize with the response in the muscles. The next time you go to see your doctor and he or she brings out the little hammer to tap your knee, ask why are you testing that? They know why they're testing it. Ask them then why. That's to compare that it's equal on both sides and that you don't have a tumor in your brain or some other serious neurological disease. Then you ask, why is that reflex there? And they will have forgotten. But they were taught once that these reflexes, when I tap the tendon, there is a short stretch in the muscle that tells the small brain and the brainstem that I just landed or I got an impact from below. So it goes into shock absorption mode. That is the knee jerk. We have it here, here. All the muscles react like this. And when you get this, even the stabilizing muscles along the spine go into protection mode. That's important to know because we can use that. So that what we do synergizes with the natural congenital, the reflexes we were born with. I will come back to lab testing later, but lab testing with just sandbags cannot tell you more than a very small piece of what is relevant. Here. The neck is much more vulnerable. Why is that? Here we have the rib cage, which is stabilizing the whole structure. Here we have a lot of muscles to keep this together, some belly fat and I mean some weight. Here we've got only the muscles to keep the head. So when the head starts flailing in different directions, the risk of getting structural failure, fractures, and contusions is higher with the same amount of force acting up there. So what is the established proven experience? Lateral slamming-induced impacts cause severe injuries. That we also know. Everyone who works at sea in these conditions know some people who have been injured from slamming. Harder slamming increases injury risks. I mean, this shouldn't have to be said, but it has to be said. Lateral and oblique impacts are more dangerous. People can get ejected by lateral slamming, ejected overboard and killed by props, drowning or breaking structures. Slouching postures cause more pain. That's also proven experience. And users normally never adjust boat seats. How many times have you adjusted the height of the lumbar support on your office chair? People don't adjust office chairs either. So, in order to make it safe, we cannot expect people to accept that we said, did you crawl down there and set all these to match your own weight in the coming sea condition? It has to be safe, even if you haven't. We just heard from Paul Lemmer, who was 1 millimeter from spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. And he's a pro. He's been a pro all his life. That was sheer luck. So this is the film that, can we turn the light down a little and the sound up? Do we have sound on this?
There was a good shot. There was another good shot. I bottomed the seat out on both of those. I'm going to give it a little bit more pressure now.
Can someone help me get this?
Oh, God, that fucking... And again. We lost an engine! Everybody okay? Is everybody okay? Lost 2 engines.
We do this instead.
There was a good shot.
Can you hear me?
There was another good shot. I bottomed the seat out on both of those. I'm going to give it a little bit more pressure now. That hurt.
That hurt.
Oh, God, that fucking... And again. We lost an engine! Everybody okay? Is everybody okay? We lost 2 engines. Engine shut down. We hit so hard. Oh. Fucking back hurts.
And this was not at an extremely high speed. But if we look at this in slow motion, look at the head jolt with the head moving forward. Say we have 6G there and the head weighs 5 kilograms or 6 kilograms. If you have a helmet, 7, 8 kilograms. It's not good. So,
by the way, it was more than 6 Gs.
How much was it?
I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 12, 14.
Yeah, and you heard him saying, that was a good one, that was another good one. I bottomed the seat out on both of those. So it was a suspension seat. Okay, here is just to illustrate this. Oh. This is an office chair I designed 30 years ago that allows you to sit in the positions you prefer and choose naturally. But it's the same. It's the same biomechanics. I'll skip through this, but the guys out there, they're more motivated by mission success than by reducing their own risk of injury, just like people climbing mountains or driving motorbikes. So what is the difference in actions needed to comply with the EU directive versus to prevent injuries? No difference. But what do you need to do to comply with the EU directive? There is nothing you can do really, because you cannot comply with the EU directive. So if you're doing research in this field, you might as well try to understand what is needed to do to reduce the risk of injury, because that's an obligation according to the EU directive. You have to prove that you've done all you could, all you reasonably could, to reduce the risk of injuries. The VDV values, the RMS values, are mean values of vibration over a period of time, and doesn't ring a bell when you get the slams that will exceed the structural strength of the anatomic structures. So we have to, as Dale said, we don't need to go any further into these directives. We have to try to understand what we should measure, how we should measure it, in order to find out what is dangerous. Duty of care is to prevent injuries. The legal obligation is to apply best practice, best available solutions, based on evidence-based science, not fake science, and proven experience. So what level of impact exposure measured in lab tests is acceptable by the EU directive? The EU directive is not there to protect sandbags in a lab, so the EU directive cannot be complied with by lab tests. It's occupational exposure we're talking about. So what you have to ask yourself, is your duty of care based on evidence-based science and proven experience? Are there solutions that work? So there is no scientific support to justify just applying these standards. I have to rush through here. I got a little excited. So, drop testing seats is good, but it can give you only a small part of the truth. It can compare mechanisms in a pure vertical acceleration, or in standardized lateral conditions, but it's just the mechanism that you compare on new seats that are not corroded and maybe not lock up under oblique or lateral impacts. The real exposure is multidirectional. Lab testing is unidirectional. Real life exposure is stochastic, unpredictable, while they're standardized in the lab. And maybe the most important thing, if you have seats that are built to synergize with the human body and mind, you can't train a sandbag to do what the human body can do. So that's why you have to measure on living humans doing their daily tasks at sea. Because if we would go into a lab and expose living humans for the same levels of impact they're exposed to at sea, we would be out of a job the next day. It's absolutely dangerous. That kind of experiment where you see how much you can take before you start breaking, that kind of science went out of fashion with the fall of the Third Reich. So today we cannot experiment with people to see when they start breaking. So here, and also different boats have very different impact characteristics. If you look at this 20-meter long boat, it has a longer duration but lower peak value. Maybe the total amount of energy is higher than this boat slams, which might have a higher peak value. So I just said this. Seats built to synergize with the muscular reflex system have to be compared side by side at sea in realistic conditions. And then you can measure. This is what we will go into in the crash course starting tomorrow afternoon. And anyone who's interested and hasn't really already signed up is welcome to do so. And I think I should just round up here. Yeah, no, sorry. This is, there is a lot of fake science out there. Here is a producer saying that we have measured 49G impacts and reduced them to 11G. Is there any scientific study to support this? No. Is it even possible? No. I mean, physically, it's impossible. So this is bullshit. It's lie. 49G is lethal. That's what helicopter seats are designed for, not to break, not to keep the pilots alive, but aircraft seats should not break under 50G, hopefully. But it's we have measured up to 18G. Some people have measured up to 20, 22G. 49 is ridiculous. So this is what people publish to sell stuff that is dangerous. And more agencies who have bought this, believed it, have just found that it didn't work and are switching out those faked seats, copies of functioning seats. So here, this graph, I asked the guy, where is the study behind it? It's never been published. Oh, sure, it has been published. Okay, where? Here in the brochure. Here is a paper. If anyone wants this paper, we have reprints of it. Jussi Mannerberg at Boomeranger Boats did this when they were sent a seat from a manufacturer saying that if you use our seats, which cost half of the seats you use today, you will comply with the EU directive, which also is a lie because no one can. The blue is the boat, the green is the seats they were using, and the red is the dangerous copy. Same as Paul Lemmer was talking about when he was having his accident. Here is another fake. This is what people write to sell the stuff that they know is dangerous. I asked the guy, did you really have that seat on that boat? Sure. So I called Åke Mannefelt and I said, is there any chance you can fit one of those seats there? No, he said. Can you fit any suspension seats? No. You sit on the deck. There is. So true confidence is when you know the cheapest bidder supplied the gear and still trust it with your life. Just to show you the difference between impact and vibration. What's being measured today is mean values of vibration. This is vibration. This is a slow vibration, about 1 hertz. This is impact. There is no way you can calculate or predict the effect of the impact by analyzing the preceding vibration. So we need new standards. Thank you.